The expanse of our universe is what comes closest to the instinctive idea of an infinity, extending as far out as close within. And while nurturing the sense of infinities, looking beyond what is humanly perceivable has been an unending quest that still keeps us on our toes. Spanning across scales, how far has humankind explored? In the 5th season of Zeroing In, we set out to unveil the ideas of scales and what it means to inhabit an infinity. Welcome to a new episode of Zeroing In, the science podcast, the 5th season, from atoms to planets. Today, we are in conversation with one of the pioneering minds who contributed to the very foundations of the field of quantum optics, Professor Rupamanjari Ghosh. Professor Ghosh pursued her bachelor's and master's of science at the University of Calcutta, graduating in 1980. She then moved to the United States for her Ph.D. at University of Rochester, New York, where she worked with Professor Leonard Mandel. It was during her doctoral years that she undertook, among other ideas, the pioneering work on non-classical effects in the interference of two photons, which essentially is considered to be one of the holy grails of the field of quantum optics today. Upon completion of her PhD, Professor Ghosh moved back to India to join the Jawaharlal Nehru University as a professor, where she worked for the major part of her career until 2012, while also holding multiple visiting positions through the years at the University of Paris South and École Normale Supérieure, among others. Professor Ghosh has served in pivotal roles on multiple national scientific and educational bodies, including the National Council of Education, Research and Training (NCERT), DST, UGC, and CSIR, among others. She was the Vice Chancellor at the Shiv Nadar University from 2016 to 2022 and is currently also on the advisory board of the Executive Leadership Academy at the University of California, Berkeley. Professor Ghosh has not only contributed immensely to the field of science and technology through her brilliant work, but has also made an indelible mark in the society through her significant contributions as a policymaker and an administrator with various educational institutions and governing bodies at different levels. In this first of the two-part conversation with Professor Ghosh, we discussed at length about the making of a scientist and the life in science. Diving deep, Professor Ghosh takes us along the insightful journey of how the scientific landscape spanned in the 1980s, and through quintessential anecdotes, shares some beautiful insights from her starting years as a doctoral student, lending a closer view to a lifetime of pursuing brilliance while discovering and nurturing dexterity, ranging wide across the experimental and theoretical fields of quantum optics, laser physics, nonlinear optics, and quantum information. Coming from the singular vantage point of the vast impact of her work, Professor Ghosh's art of storytelling is very naturally imbued with infectious passion, foresight, and refreshing candor, which comes out very evidently in the conversation up close, as you're about to hear. Your hosts for this episode are Shreya Mishra, who is currently a scientist at the Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad, and I, Naman Jain, am currently a PhD student at the Max Planck Institute of Quantum Optics. This is Zeroing In, the science podcast.
I would like to start with, while growing up, what were your ideas like? I mean, from educational ideas to what you thought as a kid, and what were your routines like in your formative years?
Okay, probably I was born in a middle-class family in Calcutta, now Kolkata. I was the third and the youngest child of my parents. So it helped. I think they were happy with the daughter and the son. I sort of appeared anyway. So as it happened, when my elder sister and brother were struggling with their studies, I got to learn by being in the background. So by the time it was my turn at school, I kind of sailed through the regular curriculum. I had the time to do my own things after school. I was an avid reader. Our house was full of books, stacks and stacks of every possible Bengali and English literature work, Indian classics, Greek epics. I read each and every one. And later I added my own collection. gathered as gifts or bought from my prize money, etc., etc. To answer your question, so that's the background. The philosophical, cultural, and social influences of the Bengal Renaissance, if you know what I mean, that ended with, I think, Rabindranath Tagore, Asia's first Nobel laureate. But this influences were deep rooted in the family. So music was an essential part of our everyday life. And you'd be probably surprised that nobody in my immediate family was in science. I think I imbibed the sense of logic, the essence of rhythm, the value of life from music and literature. In a sense, I think everything you need for a later career in physics. So that was seeded in that very humanities oriented family of mine. I've heard my father speaking extempore in public events in the locality. He was quite creative. My mother was and is still at 94, extremely bright and embodies a rare sense of grace, I would say. I was pampered by both my maternal and paternal grandmothers, not with toys, but with their time and affection. Both were very strong and generous characters. I also had the constant support of my aunt, my bua, my father's sister, who specialized in history and museology, and she was a teacher and lead administrator in a remote school. So all of that, so the house was completely different from what I was doing. I loved mathematics. I loved logical deductions I saw in science. I also loved music and literature. So for a brief period, I found a mentor in the principal of my higher secondary school, who came from the island country of Malta, near Greece. But she was again more into English language and literature with a deep interest in philosophy. By the time I was in class 9, I already knew that there are some things one had to go through in a structured manner. I thought I would not be able to learn physics on my own. But maybe if I tried, I could learn history on my own. I would enjoy literature and music on my own, maybe with a little help. But I realized the way physics was built, if you did not cross the steps as designed, you can get lost. So, your scientific journey had to follow a system. That's what it happened. And I did the regular stuff. I mean, BSc Physics honors in Calcutta University, then MSc Physics again from Calcutta University. I was standing first in the college amongst all the BSc honors graduates, as well as the overall BSc exam, etc., etc. Masters also I did fairly well, I think. But I was always looking for things outside the regular curriculum. And my science was not in silos that way, not insular from social sciences and humanities. Anyway, so I continued taking part in inter-college debates, elocution competitions on social issues, and winning. University of Calcutta never had formal convocations. I think there are too many graduates. But I attended a convocation at the university to receive the Shama Prasad Mukherjee Memorial Debate Medal. That was awarded by the university for best performance in an all India debating competition. So this was in my first or second year of undergraduate studies. And that's the only convocation of the university I ever attended. So it is inspiring, but these are very different times, different way of growing up. I spoke on the radio on other issues. I was elected, I think, the General Secretary of the College Student Union. It was apolitical, and I tried to make the forum active and responsive. So there's nobody really to guide me for the next phase of what I wanted to do. But, I sort of had all the elements, I suppose, that I needed from my family and my surroundings.
Like you said, like your family does sound like a rich childhood background to come from. But there is this point when you said that while you would, you knew that you could understand maybe not physics, but history you could understand because of the people who were around you. But what made you think that you had to understand physics? Where did that insight come from as a kid in ninth standard, especially?
Yeah, so I think I knew I liked the scientific deductions. When you ask not the big why, but how of things. And as a kid, I suppose you always have questions,
Mm.
and you find out that. And as I said, I like the other things as well, but this one, I felt that I needed to get into it because random arbitrary attempts were not very efficient.
Mhm.
So, and what brought me to physics, I did not like biology the way it was taught. And I had no option. There was no statistics in my school as the last option, the optional course. So I had to take biology. And I did very well, I must say. But, I disliked the taxing of memory. It was all these Latin words and, even the classification and all. So later, when I got into NCRT, that's what I wanted to change. I regretted that I did not learn biology. And now, as an adult, I tried from my friends and colleagues to learn biology, and I still don't have the depth of it. And I think because of the way it was taught. So I think biology should be taught like physics. You ask questions, you try to find the answers of why and how. The little whys, not the big why of philosophy, why life, but the how of things. Why do you do things the way you need to do? And that, I think, was a problem. So I understood that. What helped me is what I was just mentioning, that I was good in maths. And I immediately saw that that helped me in my physics classes. When others are struggling, I could go to the board and solve a problem without much thinking. And the training was more from first principles. This is something, a difference I saw when I landed in the US. I was not as fast in solving problems as my classmates, but I could solve very difficult problems that they could not do. Because, I would start from first principles. I'll go to the root, formulate it in a different way. They knew quick format stuff that I was never taught. And because there was nobody to really teach us at that time, the trade. So learning by yourself, you sort of, I pick up a textbook that was recommended, and then, I do all the exercises on my own. I'll finish it. And others thought it was weird. I did not think this was funny that I could actually do it, because there are questions asked and any question you'd like to attempt. And I think what was good that I could actually solve it. That means what was given in the chapter, I actually had understood them. So I had that habit of taking up any problem and solving it from first principles. I think in the end, it has saved me, when you got into research, but coursework, that's probably not the way you do. The way people do now, JEE and all, even GRE subject. There's a lot of training that goes. I was always too busy doing other things. So I never had the time to strategize for exams or prepare. So I'll attempt to do it because I would feel that, I already know this. So I didn't study something you already know. And you can crack anyway. But it took much longer than the cramped things that people do. And there's nobody to tell me how to do that. So I figured out things on my own mostly. So physics, because of the logic, in everything. But I must clarify that I think every subject has this structure that you go deep into it, it attracts you. For me, physics and maths were I loved it. I don't really know much about it. Like I said, music and literature also I loved, but I had the feeling I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong even now. History, again, I did not like because of the way it was taught. But, I have a very good memory even now, but I don't want anybody else to tax it. By loading information and facts and all kinds of stuff. So I was not for things that required me to memorize anything. And I got away. Your generation, or even later my granddaughter's generation, they won't be able to do this. But I did not want to mug up anything. And things I remembered on my own, I would keep it to myself. And I don't think that's the way. And I always felt the idea would be that you figure it out. Then exploration is a lot more fun. And the fun of cracking a problem, even if it is a book's exercise in physics. It was so much for me. I mean, finally you get this Yahoo moment. Okay, I got it. And I understood how it's to be done. And so this was more a self-learning. And I think I learned, like I mentioned, my principal, Sister Maximilla. She was there. I got her only for a short period. She was a big influence. And I think English I learned because our medium was Bengali. English was my second language, but I think I learned more written English, perfected it really. But you would be surprised, I never really spoke in English before I landed in the US. I did debates in English once in a while, but there you get some time to prepare. And but spoken English was not there. I mean, I never wasted time doing things that I don't need to do. So when I needed to do in the US, then you're not writing anymore, you have to speak. So you figure it out, and it happened.
There's so many connections and so many insights that already come up. Before we delve into that, I just wanted to sort of move further a bit and just wanted to ask you, when you went on for your PhD, I mean, as we already briefly talked about this, how did you land up going or choosing the place that you wanted to choose, even the US, I mean, for that matter? Because, for instance, before that, you had kind of consecutively followed through around Calcutta, and then going to the US and so on. And then after that, basically choosing the field exactly and precisely. How did that come about for you?
Yeah, this is also not a very exciting story, but I'll tell you exactly how it happened. As I said, I did not have anybody to guide me for the next phase after my master's. But I saw that my master's classmates were appearing for GRE, the graduate record examinations and TOEFL, the test of English as a foreign language. And they were applying for admissions in graduate schools abroad. So I got curious to know my market value and was truly interested in exploring a research career in physics. So I was very late in getting started. I could not get early dates to appear for GRE and TOEFL at the USEFI at that time. It used to be called USIEF now. In Calcutta. So the application deadlines in top US universities were over. But before that, I must say, so that was how it happened that I started going to the US EFI and then appeared for TOEFL and GRE. You know that the application deadlines get over by December, mid-January, 15 January, almost all schools close. I did not have my GRE scores. And I have not even appeared for TOEFL. So my mom's cousin, who was in physics and had completed his PhD from Rochester, was visiting home. And I had a chance discussion with him about his experiences. So, he was very impressed. That's probably the first time we talked about physics. He was impressed with my intuitive way of doing physics on my own. So he encouraged me to apply to a few places, including Rochester, saying that if you aim for the top ones without GRE score, which would come later and all, it would be difficult. But why don't you apply to the next few? I did not have the means to pay for application fees and all. So, you could at that time ask for a fee waiver if you are from India. So it was the best time to join Rochester to do quantum optics. I would be lying if I say I knew what quantum optics was. But before that, maybe there's in my social circles, there was a very famous school teacher, I would not name him, with a strong political background. He used to say, if you love India, leave science. And if you love science, leave India. It's not like I took it seriously, but it used to bother me a lot. And I thought this has to change. And I wanted to do experimental work because my professors were very good in theory, but I did not see quality experimental work happening in India. So my idea was that I will do it, learn whatever is to be learned, and I would get back to the country. So finally, I started getting, before that, I did a little bit of research on quantum optics in Rochester, what Rochester was famous for. It was not my uncle's area, but quantum optics, I found out, of course, the Department of Physics and Astronomy in Rochester has a stellar group in quantum optics. The university also had a unique institute called the Institute of Optics. It is top rated. Outside the university, there were headquarters of Xerox, Kodak, Bosch and Lomb, and so on and so forth. So it was really a dream place at that time to do optics in Rochester, but quantum optics in particular was what I was interested in. I applied, of course, to the University of Rochester and a select few places. And early in February 1981, first offer that came was from Rochester with a tuition fee waiver and very good, that standard teaching slash research assistantship. So within a couple of weeks, I received another letter from Rochester offering me their prestigious Rashtri's fellowship on top of my research assistantship. So you get chosen for, as they say, outstanding scholarly ability, blah, blah, blah. So by then I had received offers from a couple of more places too, and one offer subject to submission of my GRE scores, etc. But I decided to join Rochester. I never had this thing of bargaining. And, once I've made up my mind on doing something, I would not even look at anything else. So this is how it happened. And my intent was to go. I've never lived outside Calcutta, by the way. I've never lived in a hostel in my life before that. And so in 1981, I decided to join Rochester. So my father, in his non-interfering way, was a big support. My mother was a bit worried, but she always wished me the best. So I really wanted to get into quantum optics and master experimental technique. So I had not even finished my MSc final examinations at the University of Calcutta. So quickly finished all of it. I think within a week, I set out my first move outside our Calcutta home, all the way to Rochester. There were no direct flights. So Calcutta to Bombay, Bombay to somewhere in the Middle East, from there to Heathrow, London, London to New York, JFK, JFK to Rochester. I was exhausted. But anyway, that's how I landed in that city. It is a lot of precipitation all year round. If it is not raining, it's snowing. It is quite a change, but because the attraction, it is a quite nice city, rich, posh a bit. I mean, it's a private university. So because most of the time when the weather outside was so bad, you could concentrate on your work because there's nothing to do outside and you figure out how to do. So it was a very, very interesting phase, but in the end.
So, ma'am, you said that this was the first time you were moving out of Calcutta, forget about the country. So, can you talk about the basic adaptation problems or issues or even challenges that you faced while you were there? Because it seems like a big leap.
Just to add on that as well, I mean, so when you mention all of these applications and GREs and so on, I mean, for us, given that we are from the generation that came after 90s and so on, and even being born then. So at that time, I mean, I would imagine that there was definitely no internet. So all these applications were being sent by hand and post, right?
Yeah, my maternal uncle had an old typewriter. I remember typing some things on the typewriter. Whatever I focused on, I was good at it. I could type without without errors actually. But because otherwise I'll just write by hand, and transcripts were not available. Nobody would give like the US wants a transcript. That was not a concept in Calcutta. So university mark sheets, nobody could ever make out what it is. So I remember typing the transcript myself and of my friends. I'm not very competitive. So there's also I typed, gave it to the head of the department to stamp it, to validate it, and then force them to seal it and again stamp the envelope. And I paid postage to send it. So it was like that. For GRE, you have to go to the USEFI. A TOEFL also. You have to go there, take the exam right there. And it was a bit of a hassle. I mean, the weather was grueling and hot, particularly the time of visa and all of it. I remember I felt sick because I basically had, I think, 10 days between my finish of my master's exam. I did not wait for the results to come out and my taking off. It was a very different world then. But, we are happy. Doing it and learning it on the way and sort of doing it together. I was late. So for this one, I did not have my friends going with me. to do it. I was always, I was doing it on my own later, and the results did come all right. But by then, everything else was kind of settled. So letters were to be written by hand or typed and sent across, but it worked. Postal system worked, but you have to be ready. Letters from Rochester came by airmail. Yeah, what was your question? What are you asking, Shreya?
Basically, that this
The cultural,
big
yeah,
leap
yeah,
that
yeah,
you've
right,
taken.
sorry. Yeah, I forgot. So I think University of Rochester had a system. It's called Friendship Family, I think. So they would assign somebody to receive you, and I was kind of well paid, but when you are arriving, you hardly have anything. So they had already booked my accommodation, etc. But a lady was there, youngish, to receive me at the airport at Rochester. I was literally exhausted after 2 days of travel, no sleep, nothing. So she received me and Valerie, I don't remember the last name now, and took me to her place first to freshen up, and then I don't remember all the details, but then she took me to the university and all of it. So then later on, a couple of times, she invited me to parties and all. And the first few times I remember, there are not too many Indians, though I later on I figured out in English and economics and physics, there are a lot of Indians, and a few in management, which got started later. But in all these parties, the first thing was, oh, you're from India, and then the land of mistakes kind, elephants, and all of this. No idea about how we lived and whatever. But the major thing, this is not physics, but if you are interested in knowing, the argument started by saying that how you guys have this arranged marriage concept, and how the hell does it work? And I would be defending arranged marriage with arguments that they could not break. I basically told them even their system of dating and all is getting to the arranged part, and ours is more solid because the parties who are interested parties are actually not doing the negotiation. The parents are doing it, all kinds of things. And I give the example of my parents being, having an arranged marriage, and till today, I think they're the best couple I have ever seen. They were aligned completely. I mean, they're completely aligned. I could see it even as a child. I don't know when they discussed our future, whatever they discussed, but it was done by them. And there's perfect harmony and understanding. And there's a division of labor. One person did not interfere with the others. I was I'm from a Zamindar family. And my father became, gave up all of it, just donated whatever. But we still had that structure of a very 150-year-old ground floor of our Calcutta house. I have always seen relatives coming and staying there. My grandmother was there, my aunt was there, we three and my parents, and plus always the people staying with us. Everything was kind of open and you get to see, and there is perfect harmony in whatever. It's not like people did not fight, but there's a respect for everybody. Even for me, I remember when I was a 3-year-old, my grandmother's sister was always staying with us. She was a widow and very nice lady, and they were discussing something. And I walked in and I was listening. I was only 3, and they did not realize that I was, listening to them. And I blurted out some comments when they noticed that I was there. And and my grandmother's sister basically told me, "Oh, you should not be here when adults are speaking." My father was in the next room. There is a door in between. I did not know he was there. It must have been a Sunday otherwise. And so he walks in and he says, "Why?" She said it right. And I don't remember anything about that, what it was. I was just stunned because nobody ever scolded me. And if somebody tells me that you should not be doing what you're supposed to be doing, and then my father comes in and says, "Why?" She said the right thing. That stayed with me, that it's all right, whatever you do, whatever your stature is. But my father thinks if I'm doing the right thing, it's okay. And I, of course, left the room and all, but that was the culture of the place that I grew up in, that didn't matter whether you're small or whoever you are, but if you're saying the right thing, then it's all right. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. So I had these kind of anecdotes throughout, and I think it carried me through even in Rochester when I was challenged by New York City. I used to go to New York pretty often. I learned driving, and I bought a car and then learned driving. So I have always done things ulta, so it's the cultural shock was there, but I was very confident about where I come from, and I was very proud to be where I am. But I must tell you, so these, like arranged marriage, this you can always argue. As an intellectual, every issue has two sides, and as I said, I used to do debates a lot. So I took it to social customs, started arguing, and people were really stunned by the way I talked and pointed out things they were doing that they did not realize had the same elements in it. And so anyway, it was good fun. I must say that nobody minded it. I was also not taking it too seriously, but I would not give in, and I would smile and say things that they would have difficulty refuting. So these kind of things used to happen. I like those interactions a lot, I must say. That's where I was most comfortable. What was difficult was managing daily life in a harsh, climate like this. So I bought the car in the second year. And after that, because it was impossible to even do grocery shopping in Rochester if you did not have some transport of your own. The university bus used to run free service, but you could freeze to death if you are waiting at the bus stop for too long. And there used to be security cars coming. Twice I got picked up if they find somebody standing at the bus stop for too long. And late night, the good services. This is something that I saw. If I'm late in my research, this is much later, fourth year, when I was really, really busy. If it is early morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, they would prefer that you don't step out on your own. You call the security. They would pick you up and drop you at your place to prevent any untoward incident. So they felt prevention was better than a cure. So they would not wait security to come in once a bad incident has happened. And this circular used to come pretty regularly to us saying, call this number. And sure enough, there will be somebody at the basement of the building waiting to pick you up and drop you home. So I saw how the system we're doing many such things without making a big fuss about it. And that's how it ran there. So I appreciated all of the help. It was a bit of a struggle, even getting in touch with people at home. We used to write these airmail, letters. Phones have to be booked. They're called trunk calls. You book through an Indian operator. A horrible service, actually. Often you would not know when they would return and the call. But so every weekend, normally I talked, and I had the money, actually, so to do all of this. Then I also traveled to India. First 2 years, every summer, you'd have a paid leave of 1 month every year. I saw that also. 11 months. August was unpaid holiday. Anyway, my brother got married. I came home and all of that. So it was possible to do all of it with the Russia's fellowship, which was an added stuff. So I saw how the system ran, that there was no shortage of any food or anything. That was quite a revelation in that country. And there's always some excess that is being sent, but every system ran very efficiently. I learned that. What I did not like in the first 1 year, when it rains, the smell from the soil is different. It's different here. It's the bacteria, I suppose. I don't know what it was. And it used to make me very nostalgic that it's so different. But after that, I think in 2 years, you get used to it. Then you have your own friends. Because otherwise, even the music, you don't listen to FMs that much. But, first time I bought a set. But, you're not, the TV also, you're not interested in their news. You're not interested in their kind of songs, the things that you are missing. But then after 2 years, I was quite used to it. And you already have friends that you hang out with, you do things with, you discuss. I was a teaching assistant also for graduate students in my second year. So I was grading statistical mechanics and quantum mechanics of first year PhD. So some of my friends were also I was the grader for them. So they got to know who is the grader, and you have. Then I shifted out of the generic house to something called University Park. I had a studio apartment, very nice. There's squirrels and all in that thick snow. It was nice. You make connections, but I knew that I had to get back to India. I don't like the concept of carrying my passport in my pocket, a second class citizen. I dislike it. I don't like to be challenged. I want to be comfortable doing whatever. So I sort of had decided on that. But I really learned, that's the social structure I talked about. I really learned a lot in the academic part of it. It was like unbelievable. Classes used to start at 8 in the morning in that snow. MLOs taught us mathematical methods, and his class used to be at 8 in the morning. I still remember, but Mandel, of course, was a wonderful teacher. His lectures were unbelievable. The book that he wrote came out of those lectures. The book was not there. Now, most people, I also criticize the book now that I look at it. But for me, it was a record of what I already knew, because from him, people find the book very, if you already know quantum optics, then Mandel's book is good. That's what somebody told me, somebody famous. But anyway, I've seen that happening. But another very interesting teacher was Eberly, Joe Eberly. He's still there, quantum optics again. But he was a theoretician. Organized board work. He used to write in capital letters. He's a lefty. And you could just take a picture of this. It is so beautifully written, everything.
Wow.
Another was Statistical Mechanics by Bruce French. He's no more. He is in nuclear physics, but more random matrix theory and chaos and all. He's one of the pioneering ones. So I was actually assigned an RA to research assistant to Bruce French when I started. And he started teaching statistical mechanics. He was also something. He would take about 3 years textbook and say, this statement is wrong. And so, when you are challenged to something, I think you learn the most. NCERT also, this is what I tried to say. If you show the limitation of a particular approach, you learn a lot, because then you don't have the final answer. Bruce French, I don't think he meant it, but that's what I took it from him. He, in a couple of instances, this was not for everything, in StatMech, he showed me why what he said appeared to me is that he's basically telling me where the limit is, that this doesn't work beyond a point. And I understood and I worked it out myself. And it sort of helped in a lot of ways later in my research, in the first and second years. So interesting times.
Yeah.
The one point I must mention, you guys would not know now, that I understood India better from Rochester. You never got to meet so many Indians from different states sitting in a place like Calcutta. And I was very open. I have my best friends actually from outside Calcutta, even till today. This long friendships. So that was my biggest pride, that, now I'm seeing what these people are, what my people are like. And there's so many common threads that we had without understanding each other, and language is spoken, food habits, the way they dressed, etc., etc. So very good friendships from that time. I also learned about Europeans. I had a very good French friend. With him, it was mostly music. And he was an electrical engineer, and I was his grader actually for quantum mechanics. So I have seen a lot of, real understanding, not just seeing these people, but understanding of their culture. So I learned a lot outside physics, and of course, I learned a lot of physics from there. It was possible because of the background I had from Calcutta.
And what was it like working with Professor Mandel at that time?
Working with Mandel was also kind of by chance, I would say. I wanted to work with him, but almost everybody wanted to work with him in my class. I am not that kind to push my way. I always would sit back saying, okay, then what do I do? It was with Bruce French that was assigned to me. And I knew I did not want to do nuclear statistical mechanics of that kind. I didn't want to do. But I had a hard time telling Bruce French that I don't want to do what you do. I had difficulty. Then a friend of mine from Bombay, there in my class, told me, "What are you doing? You're scoring so well. Why don't you just go and talk to Mandel? Okay, what if everybody is going? So why don't you just go and see what he is saying?" So I did not know how to, because everybody else is going and they're Americans. And Mandel saw, and the way you get into a group is you intern for a summer. There are projects from where they would pay. Summer it was not paid in teaching assistantship or research assistantship. So I told Mandel that I'm free. This is 82 summer, the first summer I had. So he said, "Okay, what are your grades?" So at that time, Rochester did not have A pluses. I had A's. So that is the highest grade. So he said, "Oh, even in this?" I said, "Yes." And then, "Do you know experiments?" I said, "No, I don't, but I want to learn and I want to do it. And I have understood what you work on, but I want to know from you." So whatever he saw, he said that, "Okay, for 2 months, let's try it out." So I went to his lab. By then, I think he was already 55 or so when I joined. So, and he was not doing any experiment himself. He did not even know how to turn on the laser in the lab because, the other students were doing it. It was upstairs, top floor, which is not a good idea for quantum optics. But anyway, that's where his labs were. And there is a senior student, Steve Freiberg, with whom I started, sort of designing a correlator and programming it, all kinds of fun stuff. So it went off well. He paid me for that. And by the way, I'm Mandel's first and last female student, Ph.D. And he had only one, I believe. I've never talked to him about it this explicitly. When he was in England, he had, but someone who never finished. So I'm the first female student he took. He was, when I started with him, it worked out 83 onwards. I was fully on his project and paid. The assistantship part, the rushes were still going on. And first time he started getting Naval Research Grant, he got that year is the recipient of the first Max Born Prize. It was instituted, he got it. When I joined him, he got it. When I joined Girish Agarwal, Girish got it. So whoever I joined seemed to be getting the Max Born Award. But anyway, Mandel also had, he never socialized much. I suppose his children were growing up. But by the time I joined, it's the first time he started having little parties at home. He would invite us over and all. It never happened before that. So I did not know what happened before me. So I saw what happened when I joined. And things were kind of better. The first time we got optical tables, proper, many things in all the labs, all 4 labs, one after the other. We got 2 extra rooms also at the time. And things started expanding and doing very well. So I never looked back. Sort of, I had to tell Bruce French that I don't want to work on, in this area. And then the only way for me was to take a teaching assistantship by not getting into research assistantship right away before I switched to Mandel. So that semester I opted for departmental teaching assistantship. That's when they needed very advanced students to do graduate grading. So in my second year, I became a TA for graduate courses in quantum mechanics and StatMech. That was a bit of a load because they did not have another one. But I worked with 2 good people, Ashok Das for quantum and again, Bruce French for StatMech. And I think I learned because TAs at that time were supposed to solve the problems, put a copy in the library for people to see after you're graded. So it was quite challenging. But I had to take that step because I did not want to take Bruce French's money from his grant and later telling him that I don't want to work with you. By then I knew Mandel had said that I like the lab. And to Mandel, I had said, yes, let me try it out to see whether I like it and you like me. It has to be both ways, right? I mean, so it worked out. Senior students were very, very nice. And as I said, the Institute of Optics people, particularly Stroud's student, they used to come and visit us. And so it was a charged up atmosphere, very, very nice. We learned from each other a lot. I knew the problems that were happening in the next lab. Group meetings started happening. And middle of the night when we are working, it's basically you have coffee together. There's in between, there's a small coffee space where we'll stand in the corridor and drink coffee in middle of the night. And, it was nice. Everybody was working on interesting problems and we shared with each other the immediate issue you're facing and we'll come up with solutions. Go to somebody's lab and next door and basically say, yeah, also share small stuff, including, small pieces of something that you need. Figure out, I did not know much about the machine shop in the basement, learned that because all my things were fabricated by me later. And I needed to know, there's a very good person who would do all that. But it was crazy. So you had to explain to him exactly what he wants to do. He's very, very good. I wish we had somebody like that, Peter Bodoli, in my lab later in Delhi. Fantastic support. But you have to make them understand what you're saying. And they liked my way, I suppose.
This was the first of the two parts for our episode of Zeroing In with Professor Rupamanjari Ghosh from Zeroing In Season 5, From Atoms to Planets. Zeroing In aims at bridging the pronounced gap between young enthusiasts of science, technology and research and academicians and scientists throughout the Indian subcontinent and beyond. Tune in to the second part of this conversation where we discussed further with Professor Ghosh about the coveted moments that led to the designing and discovering of the first markers of the two-photon interference effect and the further work through her career after moving to India and the wonderful insights that follow through. We would like to extend our deepest gratitude to Professor Rupamanjari Ghosh for this exciting discussion and the wonderful conversation that gave us a first-hand insight into the foundationally pivotal years of the field of quantum optics while discovering what it takes to follow one's intuitive calling and building upon a lifetime of passionate brilliance on behalf of the Zeroing In team for this episode. Thanks a lot for listening to this episode. We'll be back with the second part of this conversation very soon. Meanwhile, if you have any suggestions, you can visit us on zeroingin.org or write to us directly at zeroinginpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on our social media handles at zeroinginpodcast for latest updates. Until the next time.